Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Although in Ramadan it's very hard to get up early, so I apologize for my delay. I live in Fairfield, and Fairfield University is so big. I've done many buildings here as far as construction. To talk about Islam in these days reminds me of a saying of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, who said, there will be a time where the Muslim clinging to his faith will feel like he's holding a charcoal that is burning. And these are the days. We're not covered as Muslims objectively by the media. And I like to give this following parable. You know, let me tell you one thing. I went to school, I went to a Catholic school, so I studied catechism. I know the Torah and the Gospel. I studied the Quran, so I have an overview of all three Abrahamic faiths. Islam is going through a crisis these days, the Muslims, because a lot of things have been imported into it. And we don't want to change Islam, but we have to cleanse it. Strip it from principles that have been added to it, which have nothing to do with Islam. There is no moderate Islam or extremist Islam or intolerant Islam. There is only Islam. There are moderate Muslims, extremist Muslims. It depends how the person sees it and interprets it. You know, in this country, we have a lot of crimes that are committed. If the person who commits the crime is a Muslim, the media refers to him as a terrorist. If it's an African American, he's a thug. If it's a white person, he has mental problems. Let me say to you one thing, and this one I give it in all my lectures and my talks. And this is a parable to emphasize what I'm talking about. I said that is, in New York City, you know, people walk in the street, nobody talk to anybody, everybody's rushing. A dog attacks a lady. And suddenly, and nobody bothers about it, that's New York. One guy comes and saves her. Took her to the hospital, New York Times learns about it. So the correspondent, the reporter, has a big title saying, you know, it's Good Samaritan saves woman from dog. He goes to the hospital and he looks at the lady and he said, you know the person who saved you? No, I don't. Do you have his name? I don't have his name. Well, what can I mean? He's next door. He goes next door, he sees a guy looking like Osama bin Laden with a beard. He looks like one of those Qaeda people. His name is Muhammad. So the title becomes, instead of Good Samaritan saves woman from dog, it says terrorist. Terrorist helps dog attack a woman. Doesn't make sense, but you haven't seen it. You couldn't understand it. What is Islam? To be honest, what is Islam? What does Islam mean? What does it stand for? Is it for killing? Chopping heads? There have been a lot of new concepts about Islam. We always say we don't want to have Sharia. You know what Sharia is? Sharia is, if I want to do a parallel, Sharia is the Constitution. Constitution of the US. You swear to uphold the Constitution. But then you have the laws. And the laws are interpretation of the Constitution. The recent ruling of the Supreme Court defining marriage, whether I agree with it or no, was depending on one person. 5 against 4. This fifth person could go which way, to the right or to the left. It becomes law. In Islam, as well as every other spiritual religion, and I would like to talk about Abrahamic religion, which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Sharia is laid down by divine law. 10 Commandments, being kind to other people, humanity, etc., etc., etc. When we talk about Islam, do you know which year this year it is in The Islamic calendar, anybody knows? We know which Christian calendar says 2015. Islamic calendar today is 1436. And we are 599 years behind, so we are the youngest. You know which year is it in the Hebrew calendar? The Jewish calendar. 5,775. Almost 58 centuries. Now between Moses and Christ, 3,760 years between Christ and Muhammad, peace be upon all of them. There is 579 years. Islam came, and Islam is the religion of God. Let me define a religion that it has two concepts, two major concepts. One is to regulate rituals. How you pray to God, what you eat, what you dress. Relationship with God is ritual, worship. And the other part is to regulate your relationship with other people, we call it transactions. You have to steal, you have to be kind, you don't lie, whatsoever, etc. As far as rituals, they differ, because they came at different time. 3,700 years later, almost 600 years later, they came to different people, to the Hebrews, to the Arabs, various parts of the world. So as far as kosher food, halal meat, what have you, it's different. We dress differently. But as far as transaction, it's the same. Be kind. And Islam, I don't like to define Islam as the religion of peace, unless I define peace. We deal with security. Security could be peace or not. What is peace? It's inner peace. Because in my religion, I've studied Judaism, Christianity, Islam. I'm not saying which one is better. I'm saying which one I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with Islam, that it answers everything for me. Why do you have evil in this world? Why do you have people being born sick? What is the purpose of life? What happens to me after death? Is there hereafter or no? Is there justice in this world or no? And Islam answers those things to me, and I feel comfortable with it. Does it mean you're wrong if you're Christian or Hebrew or Buddhist? No, you're not wrong. There is not wrong and right. Let's not simplify it. So Islam came to the desert. Why did he come in the desert? The Prophet was illiterate. The Prophet was his father died before him. He was an orphan. His mother died when he was 5 years old. He was bounced from one family to another. In our present day, he would have been a delinquent child, bumping from one foster home to another. His grandfather took care of him. His cousin took care of him. He married a girl who was older than he is, and she proposed to him. Wow. Woman proposing to man in Islam? Look at this concept. That's what happened to the Prophet. He was a businessman, he had caravans. And the revelation started coming to him when he was later in his life. He used to go and reflect about what is happening in this world. He would see people fighting for two horses. In Arabic literature, there was Harb Dahis and Al-Ghabra. It's two horses. People fought between tribes for 120 years over a horse. And suddenly, Angel Gabriel, according to our tradition, appeared and said, read. He was scared. He ran to his wife. Said, I think I was possessed by the devil. She said, no, you are a good person. You are honest. Let's go to my cousin. She went to her cousin, who was a Christian. He was a Christian monk. And she said, what happened? He said, you are the person mentioned in the Bible. And I wish I would be alive where people kick you out of your country or kick you out of your town. He said, will I be? He said, indeed you would be. So to me, this got me to see, where was it mentioned in the Bible? And I went to Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 19. See, I know catechism. And God speaking to Moses said, I shall raise them a prophet among their brethren, like unto thee. I shall put my words in his mouth, and I shall command him. Now, who are the brothers of the Hebrews, of the Jews? Who is the brother of Isaac? You know what Isaac means? In fact, Isaac in Hebrew is Yitzhak. Yitzhak means, Yathak means to laugh. When the angel came and told Abraham he's going to have a son, and Sarah was old, she laughed. She said, how could I bear a son? I'm only 78 years old. So they call him Yitzhak, which means Yathak. So Ishmael is the brother of Isaac, and therefore the Jews and the Arabs are brethren. That's what God is mentioning to Moses. Like unto thee, which means like you. You, Moses, did not live with your parents. He lived in Pharaoh's. Muhammad did not live with his parents. You, Moses, led your people. Muhammad led his people. You, Moses, had divine revelation. Muhammad had, and I shall command it. Read the Quran, everything has command. And the first thing in the Quran was read. That's what Muslims forget these days. Read came before pray. It came before fast. It came before help the poor. It came before go and perform the pilgrimage in Mecca. Read, what does read mean? Read does not mean recite. Recite, you read something and you recite it. Read means know, understand, and comprehend. Analyze, synthesize, then apply. You're all detectives, you know what I mean. It's not enough to know why things happen. You want to know why. I know that the sun rises from the east, sets at the west. I know it. But if I comprehend it, understand it, the sun is not moving. The earth is moving. I sit in the tree and I think the tree is running by me. That's not correct. I'm running. So we try to understand, and this is where I have the problem with every spiritual, religious text. People interpret it. I went to school in the South, in Louisiana. There was a Baptist preacher, it was in the 60s, late 60s. We have a Grambling college, it was segregation at the time, and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. Why you have segregation? If we all have the same color of our blood, what should the color of our skin make the difference? I couldn't understand it. There was a Baptist preacher who invited the choir at Grambling College, which was an African-American college, to sing in his church. The next day his congregation fired him. What did he do? Nothing. So, and what's funny is that everybody tried to convert me. That's the Bible Belt. You know, I'm the heathen. I'm the guy who's going to hell. We love you, Kareem. You know, we want to save you and save your soul. Accept Christ, or not have you. And finally, I mean, after I had been for 4 or 5 years until I got my master's, I said, I will meet with all of you, bring your preachers. I said, good, so for the sake of discussion and argument, I'm going to yield to you that your religion is better than mine. Oh, great. They thought I was going to convert. I said, but let me tell you that my faith is stronger than yours. They said, why? Because you are following religion because you're going to heaven. I'm following my religion despite the fact I'm going to hell. Don't you think that's a strong faith? They have no answer to that. You see, if you don't like the landscape, change your perspective. And Islam gives us that perspective that makes me understand everything. Islam did not spread by the sword. The biggest nation in Islam today is, anybody knows which is the biggest nation in Islam? Biggest Muslim nation? Indonesia. Muslim Arabs never went to Indonesia, never conquered Indonesia. So how do these people become Muslims? Through trade. A Muslim trader would go and buy something from somebody. He didn't have the money to pay him. And of course they didn't have planes at the time. 5 years later, the Muslim would come and knock at his door. Yes, you remember me? No. I came and bought for you 5 years ago something. That's the money I owe you. In our rituals, if a person dies, you have to pay his debt or her debts immediately before you take care of the inheritance. What does Islam teach? The problem with Islam is that most people follow things that came after Wahhabism, Sufism, Abu Huraira, all these people. They don't go back to the origin, which is the Quran. At one point, the Prophet wanted to try to convert people. He was talking to them, and a former revelation came and said, if your Lord has willed, Everybody on earth would have been a believer. You want to compel people to be a believer? So God doesn't want everybody to be the same. Diversity. Whereas diversity in the Jewish Christian tradition has been a punishment, because people want to build the Tower of Babel. And they came because they want to reach for God to the heavens, and they came down and they couldn't talk to each other. Different tongues, different languages, different colors. In Islam, it says no. O mankind, we have, and it's from the Quran, we have created you into nations and tribes, and made you different so that you may acknowledge each other. Verily, the closest among you to God is the person who is religious. What we are facing today in all three Abrahamic faiths is the stripping of spirituality from religion. It's no more spiritual. The Pope is bringing it back. As a Muslim, I have to show my respect to the Pope Francis, because he's talking about issues that are of concern to humans, to the environment, whatever. The Muslims spread, and they had their empire and what have you. This was not Islam. This was the government spreading. We have the American century, we have the British century, the Portuguese century, the Greek century, the Romans. It's not intrinsic to Islam, it's intrinsic to human behavior. What does Islam teach? What does it teach? People are equal. No compulsion in religion. You cannot force people to embrace Islam by force. What you see in ISIS is completely non-Muslim. Not non-Muslim, it's non-human. Even animals behave better than ISIS. An animal, he kills until he's fed up, till he's satisfied. He doesn't kill anymore. Those people kill and terrorize people. When Khalifa Umar, that's the second Khalifa of the Prophet, came to Jerusalem, he wanted to pray. And this is the culture. And the challenge for me is to, in 30 minutes, to give you history of Islam and culture of Islam, which is a humongous task. I'll do the best I can. He came to Jerusalem. Time of prayer came. We have to pray 5 times a day. You know, and the essence of Islam, you can find it in any. You can Google it. So I'm not going to be redundant. I'm going to tell you something different that you see in the regular media. Prayer time came. He prayed outside of the church. So the priest came and they said, "Is it a blasphemy for a Muslim to pray inside the church?" He said, "No. I'm afraid if I pray inside the church, the Muslims will come after me and convert it into a mosque." That's what the Ottomans did in Constantinople. They changed in what we call Istanbul, a church into a mosque, and this is completely against the teaching of Islam. When the Prophet had pacts with the Christians in the Arabian Peninsula, he protected their crosses and their churches and places of worship. ISIS comes and destroys the churches. Oh, they are destroying mosques. They are killing more Muslims than Christians or Jews. Where did they come from? I leave it to your detectives. But you have 20,000 foreign fighters from Chechnya and Australia and the US and Belgium and France. They don't drop into Syria with parachutes from the air. There is something logistic about it. In Turkey. And if you study the Prime Minister of Turkey, I don't want to talk about politics, his thesis, Dr. Oglu, was to recover the Ottoman Empire. We are going to encourage those extremists to take over, then we'll come and strip them and say, we are the rulers now. We'll appoint various governors in Syria and Iraq. We want to bring back the Ottoman Empire. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. Because in our faith, God is in charge of the world. As long as every drop of rain impacts the world at the exact coordinates that God intends for it to be, I have faith in God. And that's what will give me this peace, inner peace, no matter what happens. No matter what happens. God is in charge. You believe in God. Spirituality is very important. Very important. And I was contacted by Homeland Security. You know, Homeland Security, in every town, you have an FBI agent and the police officers who make Homeland Security. And they came to my home and to my office and said, you know, we're having problems with the Muslims. And I'll tell you a story about what happened in one of the mosques, which was unbelievable. I said, okay, I have three things to watch when you deal with Muslims. Number one, and you know, you detectives, you know that in human communication, oral communication is 8%. The rest of it, 92%. So that when you investigate somebody, ask them questions, you see that expression, facial expression, but emotional, you can find out whether they are lying or not, then you go to lie test and whatever. We go to any Muslim and people look like, they feel like they are guilty, you know. They are aware of us, they don't like us. I said, sure, that's what you know, but do you understand why? No, because in their country, police has been an instrument of oppression by the regime. They have dictatorship. So when you come in your uniform, you trigger something in their memory that you are coming to do harm for them, to limit their freedom. Oh yeah, we didn't know that. That's number one. Number two, when you go to a Muslim house, they like for you to take off your shoes. Not that they want to smell your socks, that's not it, but it has been proven these days that 90% of the germs that come inside your home come from your shoes that are in contact with the street. So you see most, not only Muslims, Japan, China, most Eastern cultures, they walk barefooted in their home. I said, number three, don't shake hands with their woman unless the woman extends her hand. Some people, they don't shake hands. Whether it's correct or not, that's the fact. And boy, after that, 1 year later, they said, Dr. Adeeb, it's unbelievable. I mean, now we go to various mosques, we are welcome, and people go. And number four, which is against your culture. If somebody offers you a drink, which is a Coke, not alcohol, or a sweet, accept it, it's not a bribe. So it's an insult to refuse. Take one bite from it and that's it. They're not trying to bribe you. They're trying to show you that you're welcome. It's one sign of hospitality. Now, you interpret it different. You know, in Iran, when you do this, what does this mean? Hey, we're winning. In Iran, let's give them the middle finger. Is the little finger is the middle finger. So you do this, you create problems. Same thing with other countries. So what I'm trying to do is that I want to help you, help us understand each other so that we can have a very peaceful existence. I mean, how many years are we living on this earth? 60, 70, 80, 90 years. They have to be the best. And if somebody tells you, and I go a lot to various interfaith activities, and I ask them, I said, you know, Adam, Christian or Jewish or Muslim, he was a human. Humanity should trump everything else. Everything else. We are humans. We are brothers and sisters in humanity. And any religion, any creed, any philosophy, any principle, any belief that diminish my humanity cannot be called a religion. It's a sect. Islam is bring me peace. And Islam tells me there is no compulsion in religion. The history of creation is very important. This will differ from the Jewish Christian tradition. We created Adam and Eve, and then Satan was a fallen angel. He had a rebellion against God. In Islam it's different. That's the story. It says that God created Adam and brought in front of the angels. And he taught Adam all the names. And he asked the angels, tell me the names of these things. And he said, praise be to your Lord. We don't know what you haven't taught us. He said, Adam, tell them. Adam told them the name of things. Upon this, God ordered the angels to prostrate to Adam. They all did except Lucifer. So why didn't you prostrate to him? And Lucifer did not say, I disobeyed you, God, because he was created by God. He said, I'm better than he is. I'm made out of fire. He's made out of clay. He didn't realize that God wanted the angel to prostrate to Adam because of his knowledge, because he knew things. Doesn't mean that God put Adam on his lap and said, this is a table, this is a chair, this is the light, this is the sun. No. It means that we are created with an innate feeling for learning. Just watch a child learn a language. You don't have to study grammar and vocabulary and everything. Whether it's Chinese, Arabic, English, French, Russian, Portuguese, Spanish, it doesn't make any difference. They learn the language, they acquire it. We like to learn. And so learning is very important. And the first thing of Islam was read. It was not pray. It was not fast. It says read, because when you read, you're knowledgeable. And I believe every political system should make two things available to their citizens. It'll make your job easier as detectives. Number one, they should be healthy. Health should be affordable, one way or the other. Because when you are healthy, you can make right decisions. And number two, they should be educated. You don't have to go to school and come out with a burden or with a loan. This is not correct. When you have a citizen that is healthy and educated, no demagogue can hijack your will and do whatever they want. I'm going to stop right there because I don't like to lecture. I have to make it interactive. If you have any questions, I'll entertain. Thank you for listening. Yes, sir.
Doctor, on a side note, do you believe we're living in a time of revelation as a religious scholar?
In time of what?
Time of revelation.
Revelation?
Book of Revelations that predict an Arab prince as the Antichrist.
In my faith, there were many messengers and prophets. But we believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the last. No more revelations after that. No more revelations. Which means no more books and texts. This doesn't mean that God went on Social Security and retired. God inspires us. We have inspiration, not revelation. And the relationship between God and man in Islam is individual. It's an experience. Because when I lead the prayer, it doesn't mean they are praying through me. No. They are praying to God, but I lead the prayer. And when I lead it, it means that they feel like they are a unit. Now, let me say one thing, that God created us. If you look at the creation of man, it is completely baffling. I just had a granddaughter about 2 weeks ago. And you could see how this person from a single cell to split and becomes a full human being with the DNA and everything projected. I mean, we try to do robotic engineering to imitate the hand, how many mechanisms you have. And yet God created all that. And for the atheists, I argue with them all the time. They don't have anything to stand on. Now, when God created us, and this is very interesting, He gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So that what? We listen to us as much as we talk. Some people behave like they have 1/2 ear and 1,000 mouth, always talking. And the tongue has 2 locks, the teeth and the lips. And in Islam, when we fast, we don't fast from food only, fast from talking about other people. You have to be kind to them. So yes, God talks to everybody, but is everybody listening? We have to listen to God. And believe me, I have a PhD in engineering. I know math, I know statistics, but I have the spirituality that gives me that balance between body, mind, and soul. Between the spiritual, the intellect, and the material. Material, my senses, I feel something. Intellect, I process it. Now, like they proved, it used to be the brain was a cell, was a piece of a sponge. Now the brain has been decided, has been defined, having all kind of short-term memory, long-term memory, the right lobe, the left lobe. They will prove that the heart is the reception of spirituality. You have to listen to your heart. Your heart will tell you what is right, what is not. Sometimes you suppress it. You justify it. Oh, I saw something on the ground. It doesn't belong to me. $100, I'm going to take it. It's not yours. You have to go to the police, say, I found it. But what you do, you know that it's not yours, you take it. Now in Islam talks about the psyche, and when you read the Quran is just about everything. It tells you about the insects, 1,400 years ago. They are organized like humans, the bees and the ants and what have you. So Your heart tells you what is right, but you tend to stifle it, you justify it, you convince yourself. You use semantics. I can use semantics to prove that you're not here. Semantics doesn't make any sense. I could use a very good grammatical sentence. I saw you. Subject, verb, object. Now I could say something. The squash ate John. There is a subject, there is a verb, there is an object. Does it make sense? That's what we do when we interpret religion. We interpret it out of context. So yes, God listens to me. He doesn't speak to me, he doesn't appear to me like to Moses. He doesn't send angels to me, but he inspires me. Because my heart is a reception of spirituality. And I hope. In fact, Google heart transplant. Google, look at heart transplant. There would be that at heart transplant, their behavior changed. The one guy who used to eat all the time healthy food. Healthy food. Had the heart transplant, suddenly he wanted junk food. It baffled his wife. You can see it on the internet. And then his wife went to the guy who gave him his heart. He said, "What did your husband know?" "Oh, he loved junk food." Oh. That's something to wonder about. If we think we know everything, we're wrong. What we have to do, in Islam we are three-dimensional. We have body, mind, and soul. As far as body, we take care of our bodies every year. We are bankrupting Social Security. We're living longer than they expected for us. As far as intellect, everything's at the tip of your finger. Internet. I used to have those volumes of engineering references. I don't need them anymore. I get on the internet. I want to see a Simpson tie or a wooden, go on the thing, and it just gives it to you immediately. Well, it's religion or anything. Spiritually, we have not advanced as much. So we sit on a tripod, two legs are strong, the last leg is weak. We're unbalanced. We're having all kinds of psychological diseases. People killing, committing suicide, taking drugs. There is a reason for that. There is a reason for that. They don't adjust because they don't have this spiritual deterrence to help them accept things. No, in Islam it says nothing is permanent. If you have some hard time, good time will come afterward. You are optimistic. Give you an example, and that's a parable. I'm an engineer. I'm called by Home Depot, Atlanta, Georgia, to sign a contract with them that every Home Depot in the state of Connecticut, I'll build it. Wow, I'm going to bury poverty. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to hustle to get clients and whatever. I take my car, go to JFK or to LaGuardia, I'm going. On the way, I have an accident. I break my leg. I sit in the hospital bed. God, why did you do this to me? Little did I know that the plane I was supposed to take crashed. That's the perspective. That's how we look at things as spiritual. Spirituality is very important. When we say we're going to have a separation between church and state, I agree. Church as an organization, as a business. But spirituality and politics, no. That's why I'm active in interfaith, because I think interfaith, understanding the other person, finding commonality is going to save our society. Any other question? Yes, sir.
This is probably of concern to a lot of people here in the United States. How, in your opinion, you may not be able to answer, the majority of Muslims in this country, how do they perceive the United States' current foreign policy in Israel, in Syria, and conflict right now?
I went to a seminar about diversity at Yale Divinity School. And the assistant to John Kerry, now John Kerry has a religious assistant, he's a preacher. He was there. The Holy See was there, Islamic organizations people were there, and I was supposed to talk about diversity and governance, diverse tolerance and governance. And I looked at him straight in the eye and I said, you know what? And before I say that, let me qualify my answer. There was in November, we celebrate the independence of Lebanon. So the consul in Lebanese consul in New York invited me out there to celebrate it. I was introduced as a Lebanese who holds an American passport. I said, I object. He said, what? I am an American of Lebanese origin. When you say Lebanese holds an American passport, my Americanism is temporary. My personal view, we are biased. We're not an honest broker. We're not. Because we depend on foreign intelligence who have our own. I have to depend on the Saudis, or the Egyptians, or the Mossad, or the French. I have my own CIA people. I have to listen to them. And then, we have the best system of government in the world. I agree with you. But does it mean it doesn't need to be improved? We have the best democracy money can buy. When people say, I'm exploring whether I'm going to run for election or no, what are they doing? They don't see if they could get somebody to back them financially. I'll tell you a story. Dick Blumenthal was Attorney General before he became Senator, good friend of mine. After 9/11, I was asked to go to Weston and talk about 9/11. And they had 12 families in Weston that were directly affected. So I thought, my wife said, I'll go with you. I said, let me throw eggs, they will throw tomatoes, and they are in grief. They are in grief. And you know, a Muslim did it, I'm going to be a Muslim. So I went over there, I sat next to him. He knew me as with the Red Cross, as an engineer. He said, Kareem, what are you doing here? I look at it. He looked at it, he said, I don't know you. He was laughing, he was kidding. So I came and spoke, and at the end, although it was a memorial, I had a standing ovation. And I said, please, this is a memorial. So I sat down, he said, Kareem, are you going to run for election after that? He was kidding me. I said, Dick, I don't have the money, I don't know how to raise one penny, so don't worry about it. You know, what is happening right now is that we don't have a foreign policy in the Middle East. We have an internal policy who's going to give us more money. We have to go to Sheldon Ashton, whatever. There is the primary and there is the Zionist primary, who's going to give us more money and what have you. And Christie had to apologize because he called occupied territories instead of saying disputed territories. He had to apologize to Sheldon Ashton. No, I would say we're not honest broker. And I tell it to everybody, it's not a secret. And in fact, I was in one of the mosques, and this guy from an Arab country, he came and said, this country is going to heck and what have you, and this is not a good country. He wanted me to say something, it was trapping me. And Homeland Security were laughing because I know that, he didn't know I knew them. And so I looked at him and I said, no, hey, no, I don't like it. What do you think? I said, you're a hypocrite, get the hell out of here. If you don't like it, this is very, very, it doesn't work this way. Now I'll tell you a story which is I was in a mosque, and I gave the sermon. After that I had a cleric that came from the Middle East. The Middle Eastern people, they don't pronounce the P, they pronounce the P as a B. People, they say Bible. In fact, the joke said, somebody was in London and said, can I bark here? And the guy said, you can bark anywhere, just don't bark. He meant bark. So this guy was talking about heaven, and suddenly he said, heaven is full of palm trees. And John, the FBI guy, he retired, and I said, Kareem, I'm going to arrest that SOB. I said, sit down, John. I said, sit down. He said, what? I said, don't arrest him in front of everybody. When they leave, arrest him. You don't make a scene. So I said, he meant palm trees. Palm trees sounded like bomb trees. That's culture. I said, you know what? All the kids in the Middle East, they wear bombers as underwear. That's Pampers. So how do you explain this thing? The Spanish can't pronounce the Z. They say, I was. You're a detective, you know that. So that's part of the culture, to understand. And what I'm saying, you don't need to know only, you have to understand why people behave in a way. You see those people that are taken by ASEAN, and they come and insult Obama. Obama, you're doing this and that. How do you know they are telling the truth? If you took courses in human behavior, when you say something you don't like, you turn away from the camera. When you say something against your real belief, you are forced to look in the camera, your eyelids start to click like this, you do this, because you don't believe in it. You say, how do you know these things? It's interesting. When I was doing my PhD, I audited every course in psychology. Any other question? Yes, sir.
Could you just give a little insight into ISIS and kind of how it, or if Islam plays, like, what kind of role it plays in it?
Islam doesn't play any role in ISIS. Islam is being used. You know the Crusaders, when they went to the Middle East, they wanted to save the tomb of Christ from the Muslims and what have you. In fact, there was an article in a Spanish newspaper. The Muslims are bad, let's get rid of them, what have you. And somebody sent it to me from Florida. I said, you know, the Spaniards are the last people to talk about Muslims. When they came into Andalusia and they brought civilization to Europe and they were behind the Renaissance, what did they do to them? When Ferdinand and Isabel came, they burned them. They had the Inquisition. ISIS has nothing to do with Islam at all. When you see them praying, they pray in circles. You see them like this pray? When you pray in lines. You have to face Mecca when you pray. They pray in circles. Islam is the religion of mercy. They have mercy in their heart. So they are using Islam. I mean, anybody knows French here? Anybody speaks French? Okay. Louis XVI, when he was taken to the guillotine, and we talk about chopping heads, Muslims, well, the French made an industry out of it because they created the machine for that. And before they chopped his head, you know what he said? Oh, liberty, how many crimes have been committed in your name? Oh, democracy, how many crimes have been committed in your name? We have to be honest. They have nothing to do with Islam. Islam said you don't compel people. There is no compulsion in religion. It's in the Quran, period. No compulsion in religion. You cannot interpret it differently. 20,000 fighters to come to Syria. What is the logistics? How do they enter? From where they enter? How do they train? How do they reach their camps? You are detectives. You can research that. But I don't, it's called Islamic State for Iraq and Syria. It's not Islamic State. It's not Islamic. It's independent satanic, not Islamic State, because this is not what God teaches you. God cannot contradict himself. He sent Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad and the rest of them with the same message. But those people, and you notice one thing, most of the people that are fighting, what age are they?
Young.
Very young. 18. That's the time you want young. When you think your parents are your enemies. You want to get away from them. That's when they come to them. They are disillusioned. Suddenly, somebody gives them a gun and money and women. And they have the thing like they have the jihad of sex. You go and sleep with those people. And now you're doing something to God. This is what God said. They have they have something that said that if you go to heaven and you die like a suicide, you have 73 virgins. Has nothing to do with Islam. It's not mentioned. It's not documented. But let's talk about common sense. A ratio a place where the ratio of women to men is 73 to 1 is not heaven, it's hell. You cannot live with one woman. 73, that's hell. It doesn't make sense. That's the problem. Religion is not supposed to desensitize you to logic and to reason. You cannot be anesthetized. It's not anesthesia against thinking. And the first word of Islam was not pray. It says read, which means think. So it's completely out of Islam. The way I understand it. So I want to qualify that.
I would like to thank you, Dr. Adeeb, taking time out of your schedule, coming before the class today and educating us in